You're starting to annoy me a little. He's not as tough as he pretends to be. Neither are we. Hollywood has its golden boys, the charming devil with athletic moves and that kind of magic charm. Most friendships in Hollywood are like camera flashes, super bright, super hot, and gone in a second. But then, there are super rare ones, like Robert Redford and Paul Newman, who stayed super close for almost 50 years. Of course, everybody always wondered if their friendship was as real as it seemed. Were they just two super handsome actors who happened to look great together on screen? Was their amazing chemistry just good acting, or was it something way deeper? Over the years, tons of stories started floating around. Whispers about jealousy, rumors of them competing, even hints that there might be something more personal between them. And now, Robert Redford is looking back on a life that's pretty much Hollywood history. And he's finally talking openly. He's ready to tell his side of the story. And depending on how you hear it, it might shut down all those old rumors forever, or start a bunch of brand new ones. Of all the directors I've worked with over the years, Hill is the most talented one. George really understood Butch. He got it right away by calling his agent and saying, "I need to get a job." He had just gotten fired from Hawaii and fired from Thoroughly Modern Millie. Back in the late 1960s, there was this big audition for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Paul Newman was already a huge star by then, and people saw him as this smooth, super confident guy with those famous blue eyes, an Oscar nomination for The Hustler, and that grin that made you feel like you were part of some secret joke. He just had this natural, cool vibe. He had moved to California and switched to movies. I got sent in for the role of the Sundance Kid. I was a total unknown actor back then. Paul was super famous. The studio didn't want me because nobody knew my name. They thought it would mess up the balance, but it was really Paul's decision, and he backed me up completely. That was a really generous thing to do because he cared more about the acting than anything else. Then Robert Redford walked in. He was definitely good-looking, and he had already made people notice him on Broadway with Barefoot in the Park, but in Hollywood, he wasn't proven yet. He didn't have that big name that guaranteed people would buy tickets. The bosses were throwing around names like Steve McQueen and Marlon Brando, guys who were safe bets. To them, Redford seemed risky, but Newman saw something different. He didn't care about the money side or the politics. He just looked at Redford and thought, "Yeah, that's the guy." Later, a producer told Redford what happened. While everybody else was arguing, Newman just shrugged and said, "I want the kid." Redford has something real. Newman never even told Redford about it back then. That wasn't his style. He didn't need praise for spotting talent. He just trusted his instinct. That one decision changed everything. By the time Redford finally heard the story, the two of them were already super close friends. They ended up living near each other in Connecticut, just a mile apart. And instead of playing all the fancy Hollywood games, they just hung out in their backyards, grilled steaks, argued about who was buying the next beer, and acted like normal neighbors who just happened to be two of the biggest movie stars ever. A movie that everybody loved and could feel proud of. There was probably a little worry that it was maybe too clever or too much fun and games, but it was still a super attractive script. Really well written. There's a ton of pressure in the first week. You just show up like we did with 165 people. You're super aware you're spending $30,000 to $35,000 every single day. The crew doesn't know each other very well yet, and everybody's a bit nervous and trying to prove themselves. Now, filming Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid wasn't the fancy Hollywood life people picture. They were out in the middle of Utah where the sun was beating down like it wanted to fry you, and the ground was just dust and rocks. The days felt endless with both of them stuck on horses under that giant hot sky. And at night, they crashed in cheap little motels by the road that weren't anything special. Places with noisy air conditioners and hard beds where getting a couple hours of good sleep felt like winning big. But somewhere in all that mess, their work relationship turned into a real friendship. Paul Newman was 13 years older, so it was natural that he kind of became the big brother. He didn't give big lectures or lessons, but he showed Redford little things, like how to find the best light on set, how to really listen in a scene so it feels alive, and how to own a scene without looking like you're stealing it. He even gave practical tips, like how to sit on a horse right so you don't walk funny the next day, or how to talk to reporters without getting trapped by dumb questions. And then there was this one night after a crazy long 16-hour day in that heat, when Newman just grabbed a beat-up cooler from the back of a truck, opened it, and handed Redford a cold beer. No big speech, nothing fancy. He just lifted his bottle and said something simple like, "To the only guy I'd trust to have my back in a gunfight." That was all. The bottles clinked. They drank their beers, and from that moment the friendship was totally sealed. When Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid came out, it didn't just do okay, it exploded. It became one of those movies everybody was talking about. Theaters had lines going around the block for months. College kids had the poster all over their dorm walls, and you couldn't turn on the radio without hearing, "Raindrops keep falling on my head." Suddenly, Newman and Redford weren't just stars anymore. They were a team, like a brand. Newman with that crooked smile, Redford with those icy blue eyes, and together, this super easy back and forth that felt like real buddies. A few years later, in 1973, they worked together again on The Sting. It had a totally different feel, more fancy, more tricky, like a giant puzzle. But it was just as huge. It won a bunch of Oscars, including Best Picture, and for years it kept playing on TV over and over. Everybody had seen it at least once, and a lot of people watched it like a dozen times. Of course, the studios went crazy. They wanted to throw money at anything to get the two of them together again. Sequels, spin-offs, whatever. They wanted Butch and Sundance go to Mexico or The Sting in Vegas. But the funny part is, Newman and Redford weren't into it. They turned down every offer, even when the money got insane. Later, Redford explained it perfectly. "We were afraid of ruining the magic. They knew what they had was super special. It was lightning in a bottle. And lightning doesn't usually hit the same spot 3 times. I found this old wrecked block of metal that came from a crushed car. There's a squirrel under there or something. He tells the worst jokes ever. Hey, and it's fine if he just didn't keep telling the same ones over and over. Yeah. See? Okay." Off camera, their friendship was all about pranks. Working together showed how natural they clicked, but hanging out showed how much they loved messing with each other. Newman was obsessed with race cars. He could talk about him forever. Redford respected it, but he also found it kind of boring sometimes. So for Newman's 50th birthday, Redford got him the perfect joke gift. He found a totally wrecked Porsche in a junkyard, basically rust and trash, wrapped it with a huge bow, and left it at Newman's front door. Newman didn't say anything at first. He stayed quiet for weeks, which was weird. Then one day, Redford came home and found a giant cube of crushed metal right in his living room. Newman had the car squashed flat and delivered inside the house. It was so heavy it dented the floor. That's when Redford knew the prank war was on. It only got wilder after that. Redford once paid for a full-page fake ad in a movie magazine wishing Newman happy birthday and joking that he was sorry for Newman's drinking problem. Newman got him back super simple but hilarious. He secretly fixed Redford's garden hose so when Redford turned it on, water shot sideways and soaked him completely, like a cartoon. That was how their friendship rolled. They kept going for years with rubber snakes, fake spiders, surprise packages, each trying to outdo the other. They even kept score. Points for how creative the prank was, and bonus points if the guy getting pranked laughed first. It was totally childish in the best way, and it was their way of saying, "I got you." A while back when I was trying to rent an apartment in New York, and if you've ever done that, you know it's tough when you have to face a strict board and really need to impress them with references. So I asked a few friends to write letters supporting me, and tonight I want to share the letter Paul wrote to the board. To whom it may concern. Mr. Robert Redford has owed me $120 for over 3 years. He refuses to pay even if our friendship, honor, and loyalty are on the line. I cannot honestly recommend him for anything. For more than 20 years, the rumors never really stopped. Every once in a while, another headline would pop up. Redford and Newman doing a sequel or a new Western in Morocco or a heist movie on the French Riviera. It became a constant thing. Studios kept sending scripts, hoping to catch that same magic again. Some ideas weren't awful, but most were just lazy cash grabs. Every now and then, Newman and Redford would meet for lunch at some plain diner halfway between their houses in Connecticut. They'd throw the new scripts on the table, but almost never even open them. Instead, they talked about real life, how their kids were, Redford's new environmental stuff, the leaky roof on Newman's barn, or whatever new sailboat Newman was dreaming about. Movies weren't the main thing anymore. Looking back, Redford put it simply, we felt like we'd already told the story we needed to tell. Twice. Anything more would just be chasing something that was already gone. They never made a big official "no more movies" statement, and they didn't slam the door. They just let people keep guessing. In a way, the idea of them working together again became its own legend. But for them, the story already felt complete. Any friendship that lasts over 40 years is going to have some rough spots, and theirs did too. Mostly their personalities fit perfectly, but sometimes those differences annoyed each other. Newman was super strict about being on time. He thought showing up late was disrespectful. Redford admitted he lived on mountain time, meaning he showed up whenever he felt like it. That alone drove Newman crazy sometimes. Then there was how they acted. Newman liked to rehearse everything until it was perfect, while Redford liked to keep the first take fresh and full of energy. Usually those were just little things. But in 1979, things got bad. They were supposed to play in a charity celebrity tennis match. Newman showed up early like always, but Redford walked in super late. Way too late. Newman had been waiting over an hour and was really mad. It wasn't just the lateness. To him, it felt disrespectful. They said some harsh words that really hurt. And then nothing. No calls, no beers, no jokes, for 3 whole weeks. The silence felt worse than the fight. Then suddenly Redford got a postcard in the mail. No address, nothing fancy, just a silly cartoon of 2 cowboys in a big, awkward hug. It was Newman's way of saying, "Come on, enough." Redford laughed so hard, and just like that, everything was okay again. The fight didn't matter anymore. Later, Redford said it best. We fought like brothers because we were brothers, and that was the truth. Little arguments came and went, but the friendship never broke. Oh, it's really exciting. I love you as an actor and as a car guy because you've always been one of my heroes. Actually, there's this urban legend that's bugged me since high school. A friend said he was driving through your town, Westport, Connecticut, late 60s, early 70s, and a Volkswagen pulled up that sounded like it had a Porsche engine and smoked him bad. He swore it was Paul. Was that you? That was before I switched to the Ford engine. Oh, it was you. Oh, it was you. It was you. You see that? Hollywood was their job. But it never really felt like home. The red carpets, the parties, all the fake smiling, it just wasn't them. What they really loved was the simple stuff. Dirt on their hands, the salty air from Long Island Sound, and the good feeling from normal everyday things. When Newman wasn't filming, he was usually in his garage working on race cars or running Newman's Own, the food company he started with the crazy idea to give every single penny of profit to charity. Redford had his own big passion. He bought a huge canyon in Utah and turned it into the Sundance Institute, a safe place for indie filmmakers to make real movies away from big Hollywood. But on weekends, they often met up halfway, living more like regular neighbors than famous people. They mowed their own grass, traded tomato seeds over the fence, and sat on old porch chairs with cold chicken, arguing about politics until the sun went down. Their kids grew up together like one big family, not as celebrity kids, but just normal kids who cared more about stacking firewood for winter than what their dads did in movies. In 2007, Redford got a call from Newman. The voice was the same one he'd known for 40 years, steady, warm, familiar. But this time it sounded slower. He just said it straight. Pancreatic cancer. No drama, just the truth. Redford didn't wait. He jumped on the next flight east. When he got there, Newman was sitting on his porch in Connecticut watching the leaves change color. Redford sat down next to him, and they stayed there for hours. No reporters, no cameras, no Hollywood fake stuff. Just two old friends on a porch talking. They didn't talk much about the sickness. They didn't need to. Instead, they talked about their lives, their kids, the world, all the normal things that felt more important right then. At one point, Newman made a joke only he could make, that he'd better go first because he couldn't handle Redford giving the eulogy. They both laughed, that real, deep laugh that comes from years and years together. But after the laugh, there was quiet. And in that quiet, they both knew he was serious. A year later, the news came. Paul Newman was gone. The whole world mourned a legend. Robert Redford mourned his best friend, his brother in every way that really mattered. Years have passed, and now at 89, Robert Redford is finally setting the record straight. All those rumors that were around forever, rivalry, secret romance, jealousy, secret Hans, shakes. Most of it is just silly nonsense, he says, calm and clear. The truth is usually way simpler and way deeper than gossip. He stops for a second, thinking. Paul believed in me before I even believed in myself. He risked his own reputation for me when the studio wanted a bigger name. Who does that in this business? Almost nobody. His eyes look far away, remembering. He showed me how to survive this crazy world, how to stay a decent person when so many forget how. He taught me that who you are when the cameras are off matters way more than any character you play. Redford's voice gets softer, and for the first time his eyes look a little wet. I miss him every single day. That never goes away. But I carry him with me in every decision I make, every project I do, in how I try to live. You can't measure their lives just by ticket sales. Their real legacy was built quietly, on purpose, far from the bright lights. Newman's Own, that little salad dressing company that started almost as a joke, has now donated over $600 million to charity all over the world. The hole-in-the-wall gang camp that Newman started for seriously sick kids still makes thousands of kids laugh and feel hope every year. Meanwhile, Redford's Sundance Institute has become the most important place for indie filmmakers, starting careers and helping tell bold, real stories, the kind both he and Paul loved. Both places run on the same idea they believed in: do good work and don't brag about it. Let what you do speak for itself. On his desk, Redford still has a framed photo of Newman from years ago. Paul's wearing his racing goggles, grinning that huge, unforgettable grin like he knows the best secret ever. Under it, in Redford's handwriting, it just says, "Still watching my back." A few years after Newman died, Redford was cleaning a drawer in his study and found a stack of old letters tied with plain string. The paper was a little yellow, the ink fading, and every letter started, "My dearest Paul." None of them had ever been sent. Reading them felt like looking into a private journal of their friendship. There were sorries for forgotten birthdays, thank yous for advice that really helped, and little confessions about normal stuff. In one letter, Redford admitted that for years he used to stand in front of the mirror practicing Newman's laugh, trying to get that perfect, warm, mischievous sound. The letters showed a friendship so deep it didn't always need words. "I just thought we had all the time in the world," he says quietly. "You always think that." but forever turns out shorter than you expect. Since then, he's written one final letter, put it with the others, and never told anyone what's in it. Some things, he says, are just for one person. What's your favorite Redford Newman moment? On screen or off? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know right away when we post something new.